Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our final draw of round-robin action here at the New Brunswick Tankard Men's Provincial Final 8. Winner of this tournament going to the Brier, of course. We have a game and a half here for you this morning, everyone. We've got Scott Jones from Curl Moncton versus James Grattan, based out of the Gage Golf and Curling Club in Normuckton, New Brunswick. We're playing action here on Sheet 4 of the Capital Winter Club in Fredericton, New Brunswick. So if you're in the region, feel free to come on down. Plenty of curling action left as we get into the serious business end of this tournament. So Team Grattan going to be throwing the yellow stones in this first end. Jamie Brandon there throwing his first rock of the game. And Scott Jones and his squad out of Cromongton will be throwing the blue stones. 10-end game, of course. James Grattan winning the draw to the button has the hammer here in this first end. As such, you see Jamie Brandon throwing the corner guard. So if we just go through the lineups here now for Curl Moncton and Team Jones and their squad, we have skip Scott Jones, third Jeremy Millay, second Brian King, and lead Robert Daly. And for James Grattan and his squad out of the Gage Golf and Curling Club, we've got James Grattan, of course, as skip. Chris Jeffrey at third, who is not playing in this game. And Andy McCann is their second. Jamie Brandon is the lead, and Paul Dobson, who's playing in at mate, is their alternate. So if you're wondering why the lineup change is different there, that's the difference. And I'm Will Roberts, and I'm here for this morning game along with Brent Wishart.
Yeah, good morning. Good to be back.
We'd be remiss to say if some of the guys out there are recovering from what was a fantastic event last night, the kitchen party. But I'll guarantee you and venture a guess, none of these guys are having any trouble this morning. But we're going to have a pretty darn good game here for you this morning.
Yeah, no, big important games here to wrap up the round robin on Saturday morning. We got a couple teams fighting for top spot. Grattan with a win locks up top spot, I believe. With a loss, then there's a potential to tie with the winner of the Ottershaw Roach game at first place. So, big important game here, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and big implications here in this game for Team Jones in particular. They have to win if they want to try and avoid some kind of a tiebreaker situation. Basically, their idea going into this game is win and cross your fingers and hope that whatever happens elsewhere goes their way. And by elsewhere, I mean on sheet 2, there's the Ottershaw Roach game that is in their first end as well. Terry Ottershaw and Jason Roach playing each other. That's a big game with some big playoff implications. So we'll let you know what the scores are like over there, because depending on what happens here this morning will determine top spot and who's in the final, who's in the semifinals, and whether or not we need a tiebreaker to determine all of that.
Yeah, Ottershaw and Grant are obviously looking for, Ottershaw and Roach are obviously looking for Grattan to win this game because that means they're in without too much of a sweat. But if Jones wins this game, then one team's going to be sweating pretty hard over there.
Yeah, so there's the stakes, folks. So we know what's at stake here this morning. They know what's at stake. So as Brent and I have mentioned, this is destined to be one heck of a game, and we're lucky to be here commentating on it for you. So sit back and relax, enjoy, grab your coffee. I certainly have mine. And enjoy some curling here on this Saturday morning.
Yeah, Grattan early here in the first end playing these yellow stones. It's got a couple in there in the 4-foot, one buried. So Jones just going to try to go ahead and remove those right now and just try to, I think, clean up this first end a little bit. It kind of got away from them a little.
Yeah, the first stone of the end went into the back 12-foot, and James Grattan wasn't really worried about that through corner guard. That's led to a bit of this mess here. Jones with a center guard out front there. However, Brian King has a double opportunity here to get rid of those two yellows, which will make life a little easier for the skipper there in the house. And just barely moves the second yellow, but gets rid of one.
Gets it out from behind cover though, so not a bad shot there for King.
Here comes Andy McCann throwing his last rock here is at second. Coming around this corner guard. Grattan with hammer, of course, and with all of his experience and with all the team's ability, not afraid to go for the gusto here in the first end. Put up a corner guard and going for their two right away.
Yeah, I think this is really just a power play from him to say, like, look, we want to control the game. We want to control it from the start. We're not gonna sit around and hit for an end. They've played on this ice 2 days ago on the Thursday evening, so they know what they're getting into.
Yeah, and Jeremy Milan knows what he's getting into here as he prepares to throw his first stone at Mates Rocks here for Team Jones. It's a bit of a tricky situation facing Team Jones right now. 2 yellows in the house, shot 1 and 2. However, as Brent mentioned before, that yellow is pretty well completely open in the center, so gives them a bit of breathing room to play a shot down to that stone here now. The stone really does need to curl here for Team Jones. And this will be tapping this yellow stone just about a foot. Not great from Jeremy Millet. That leaves Paul Dobson the opportunity to hit and roll undercover and lie 3. Maybe not what Scott Jones had in mind there.
Yeah, we saw yesterday in our 1 o'clock draw. We saw missed opportunities was the highlight of that game, and so I think both teams in this game, they're going to want to make sure that they lock those down. That was a little bit of a missed opportunity there by Scott Jones's team just to miss the freeze, but it's early, so we're lots of time for them left.
Yeah, exactly. And in the meantime, Paul Dobson's trying to take advantage of this opportunity here, and just barely does, almost moving his own stone, but did not. So that's not a bad result for Team Grattan. I mean, they wanted to roll a little further, but it's not a horrible spot. So Jeremy Millet looking for a little bit of redemption here on his second shot. Didn't quite make the last one the way they wanted, and I believe they're just going to call the run double here, I think.
Yeah, it makes sense. They want to clear out that middle a little bit, get their own rocks in there, so run double does a little bit of both of that, and if you miss wide, then you still at least open that up for an easier hit. That's a great shot there by Jeremy Millet.
Nobody catching the yellow stone, but nonetheless a pretty darn good shot from Jeremy Millet. And not only do they get the run double, but the shooter rolls over to act as a guard. Yeah, it's a corner guard. It's not exactly helping Scott Jones all that much, but there's a blue stone behind it, which is now shot rock behind 2 guards. So you see James Grattan here calling for to play on something to try and get at that blue stone.
Yeah, this is obviously the danger of going for 2 in the first end there with corner guards. Is a hit and roll over, a peel, and a roll suddenly gives the other team two nice guards to get behind, and it just so happened that they rolled there off a great shot. So.
And that's always the danger. We got 2 great teams, all of them capable of making great shots like Jeremy Millet just did. And as much as James Grattan looked like he was in a pretty darn good situation the whole end, Jeremy Millet getting his redemption there with his last rock of this first end, and makes a fantastic shot to put the squeeze on Team Grattan here in the first end.
Grattan just runs that blue right by everything, but you know what? It opens it up and then gives another lane into the 4-foot there.
Scott Jones and Jeremy Millet just trying to talk about what to do here on his first rock. Jeremy and Scott tend to have some long conversations about a lot of these rocks that Scott Jones throws, which is, trying to make sure they put it in the right spot is one thing, but it does eat away at their time a little. So but surely they're more than well aware of that and more than experienced enough to know how to deal with that situation, and that's what works for them. So with that conversation now done, Scott Jones coming down to tell his sweepers, here's the plan, boys. I think they're just coming down to this this blue stone here. Not a whole lot of a margin of error for Scott Jones. You don't really want to come up, you don't want to be heavy. Coming up light isn't awful. But if you're ever on that blue stone, frozen to it, there really isn't too much of a bad spot to put it. Sweeper's on it for line more than anything. And as I said before, coming up light's okay for Scott Jones, and that's what's just happened. So they've guarded that blue stone. That's a fine outcome. So now James Grattan and Paul Dobson just discussing what comes next here for Team Grattan with the hammer. So this will be James's first stone of the end. I'm not completely sure what Chris Tapley's out here talking about with Rob Daly, but an extensive conversation.
Generally, Chris likes to know how the ice is running there in the first few ends, and likes to get the split times, and he finds it easier to, at least when I curled when he was doing ice, he just comes and asks the sweepers, saves them an extra step. They've been doing split times on everything, so.
Fair enough, and
plus it's a nice conversation to break things up.
Exactly, so of course a lot of camaraderie out here, and no one overly going to be antsy or upset about any of that. So James Grattan trying to freeze to this stone, but will bump off and open. Pretty much all of that rock wide open for Scott Jones to come down and play to it and possibly lie two and force James Grattan to a shot for one here in the first end after what looked like a pretty good situation for them to get two. That's what happens in curling. Sometimes you'll be set up one way, and as Jeremy Millay made that shot, which is probably the key shot of this end moments ago, that changed the look of this first end to the benefit of Team Jones. Scott Jones getting ready to throw this in-turn hit and roll.
They're on it out of his hand.
Line seems all right, but it is really curling. And just gets 2/3 that stone and gets pretty close to where they seem to have wanted it. But whether there's a double or not is the question now for James Grattan. And I don't believe...
No, I think you're going to end up jamming that other blue into the yellow, so I think they're just going to nose for their one here.
Yeah. So, not quite what James Grattan had in mind. So, mission accomplished for Team Jones in this first end. Always want to keep the other team and force them to one and when they have hammer. So, Scott Jones and Jeremy Millay will be happy about that, but James Grattan won't be too worried about it. It is only the first end. Nobody's winning the game in the first end, so shake it off, try and force Scott Jones to one in the next end, and keep on trucking along in this game. James Grattan with the outturn hit, just trying to get to the nose of this stone. Use this stone to curl here. And now he needs it for line, and that really took off on James Grattan there at the end. Lost that stone. And that's a steal of one, I believe, for Team Jones. That's unfortunate there for James Grattan, but that rock really took off there at the end.
Yeah, if you can get a rock right there in the center line, it is a really hard rock to hit. And so good on Scott Jones for putting it there. Just a little bit of a miss on Grattan's part, and Jones manages to pick up a steal of one.
Yeah, and Brent's right in pointing out it's always tricky right now, especially we've seen on this sheet, right between the 4-foot area in the center of the sheet, it's really curling. The ice is a little dished in that way, and so you got to be careful. And James Grattan maybe not as careful as he would have liked, and just over curls and gives Scott Jones a steal of one in the first end. So it's 1-0 for Jones over Grattan in this second end now.
Yeah, you really like that ice when you're trying to draw to the button for one, but when you're trying to throw hits down there, it does make it a little harder.
So Rob Daly will throw the first shot of this second end, and if James Grattan was going for his 2 in the first end, he's definitely going to be going for 2 here in the second. So Scott Jones fully aware of that. However, Rob Daly placed his first stone in the first end in the back 12-foot, and places his first stone of this second end
right through the house.
Right through the house. Not what Rob Daly had in mind. So as Jamie Brannon starts this end for Team Grattan, just throwing corner yards. Brent, how are we doing on the other sheets here now?
Yeah, so over on sheet 2, which is the game we're keeping an eye on for standings, Audrey Rocha blanked the first end there, so that's still 0-0. And over on sheet 3, you have Como versus Sear, and Como's up 1-0 on that game. And over on sheet 1, they got a mess of rocks in, but they still got a couple to come left, so we'll get you that update when we know it.
Meanwhile, Rob Daly on our feature sheet here in sheet 4 is going to try and make this center guard through his first one through, but just going to try and put his head down, focus, and put up a tight center guard here for Team Jones. Team Jones is going to really be trying to put the squeeze on Team Grattan again here in this end. If you force to one here, that's the best outcome for Team Jones. So definitely going to be trying for this. However, this blue stone is not stopping yet, but will right on the Canada Cup logo. Thanks, Scott, for pointing that out. And just as that blue stone covers the Fredericton and year in that logo, the Canada Cup is coming to Fredericton this November of 2020. So fantastic to have one of the biggest events in curling here in Canada coming to the city of Fredericton. Of course, we've had some fantastic national events come in the past few years, but this is definitely the icing on the cake thus far.
Yeah, last year we got the chance to host the U Sports, the CCAA, and the Canadian Mixed Doubles Nationals, which was a great time there at the end of March. So should be exciting for the Canada Cup here in November.
Yeah, so if you're interested in getting tickets for that, we hope you are. Try and make sure you follow and like the Capital Winter Club on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you'll be able to hear about when the tickets go on sale first from our social media here at the club. So be sure you go and do that so you don't miss out on tickets for that great event. But we have a great event here right now, folks, and Brian King just trying to freeze to this yellow stone. He's just going to tap that up a little. Yeah, that's a pretty good shot from Brian King.
Yeah, we got our update over on sheet 1. Hansen there was drawing against 1 yellow for 4-1 there in the end of the first, and he came up just a touch late, rubbed on a guard, and wasn't able to roll all the way in. So Brian Kane with a steal of 1 there in the first.
And Andy McCann throwing his first stone of this second end here now for Team Grattan. Just coming down to this blue stone. If you move it a little, that's okay. Just gotta move it the right way. So with that in mind, Jamie Brannon just going for curl here at the end.
Pretty good shot there by Andy McCann.
So Scott Jones now has something to think about. couple of yellows in the house and the forefoot as well. So now it's a question of what to do to try and keep this end from getting away from them. So Brian King's going to play down to that yellow stone that Andy McCann had just thrown. Just freeze to it in an effort to keep James Grattan from having a shot to lie 2 or 3 here later in the end. It's Brian King with his second stone of this second end. Really going hard for line right now. Hard for weight too. Trying to get down to this yellow stone. Looks pretty good. It does stop short. And that's not what Team Jones wanted, but still a decent outcome. Does the trick in terms of making any kind of shot to lay a few for James Grattan a little trickier. So James Grattan with that in mind, might have heard me, who knows, is gonna hit and roll over, try and get rid of this center guard here. Once again, on the Canada Cup logo. Thanks, guys, giving us some good advertising here. Andy McCann just trying to peel off that guard, and he does. Shooter rolls out, but that's not a problem. And now it's a bit of a cat and mouse game here for Jones and Grattan. Jones, fully aware of the dangers of those 2 yellow stones in the forefoot, has the added benefit of one of his own in there right now, but it is a little bit of a dangerous situation if you're Team Jones, and Grattan knows he could have a chance for a couple in this end. So Jeremy Millin, with that in mind, is going to try and protect these 2 stones.
Yeah, I think Scott's kind of playing for a miss here on behalf of Grattan. James is eventually going to be forced to deal with those yellows and that blue in the house. And as a result, Jones is just going to make it a little more difficult, throw some guards, and make them make a shot that is a little more difficult.
Exactly, and that just doesn't curl as much as the guard earlier in the end did. Jeremy Millin just asking, what I do there, Skipper, and gets an answer. So a little bit of constructive criticism or advice there from the skip. And James Grattan just asking for another peel here from his team. Paul Dobson in the hack, throwing an out turn at this blue stone. Not much of a risk here with this peel. You never want to really nose it, but if you do, nonetheless, you get rid of one of the back ones. And he just hits the inside and rolls over to act as another corner guard, which may make Scott Jones a little uncomfortable here in the house, because if James Grattan's team makes a pretty good shot and rolls over, which is one of the ways that you can get those 2 blues in the house going and leave all the yellows in the house right now, is a hit and roll kind of sort of run back for James Grattan, which could leave them in a tricky situation. And with that said, Jeremy Millin is going to try and replace his center guard. But there is certainly a danger looming here for Team Jones. This rock is just over curling a little, so they're just going to try and leave it short. Leave it high, rather. And it does. Just enough to make a difference in terms of keeping James Grattan from being able to throw a big shot to change this end, but that rock is high enough to play to that blue stone in the top 12.
Yeah, it's interesting that Grattan's deciding to hit this, because I would think you hit and you're going to roll, and you might leave a double there for Scott Jones to get out of this trouble a little bit.
Yeah, so we'll see how far Paul Dobson rolls here. He is throwing a good chunk of weight at this stone, and it's curling out of his hand. If you get rid of the center guard, that's not the end of the world, but not what the skipper wants, apparently. Straightens up at the end, but we'll only get about a third of that stone and rolls pretty far. By pretty far, just barely turns back into the rings. Andy McCann's brewing in the air. He knows that might count for something later in this end, so decent outcome for Paul Dobson.
Yeah, Scott's got a couple options here. He can freeze right to that yellow one and make life a little difficult for James Grattan, or he can just hit it and get it out of the way.
Yeah, Jeremy Melez suggested there for a moment the long double. Scott Jones's worry there may be, right, but what if I ever get rid of my own, we're in a real pickle. And so they're just going to keep discussing what to do here.
There's also the guard, too, which stops everything, because I don't really think you can run that yellow on the right-hand side of the top of the house into anything. So if you're running something, it is that yellow by the Curl NB logo, but that puts the blue right into the yellow in the back of the 4. So I think they're going to end up with a guard here. Yeah, just right there on the Fredericton sign. And hope for the best.
So Jeremy Melez is going to take a drink of water while Scott Jones goes down to the other end to get ready to throw that center guard for his first stone of this second end. Trying to put it on the D of that Fredericton logo. A little bit of outward motion at the end there for Scott Jones' release, which is okay. You're throwing a guard, and this will curl in at the end. Looks deeper than they wanted it. Jeremy Melez calling the sweepers off, and just slides a little further than they wanted it, but in a good spot in terms of line, preventing any kind of play on that yellow in the house for James Grattan. James coming in on the other side here now. Not quite sure what he has in mind. He may just be trying to tap that yellow and move that blue a little. Try and help him help him move it, really.
Yeah, he can definitely get through in between that top blue and the yellow guard just sitting outside the 12-foot. So I think he's going to try to come through that hole and just shake some stuff up in there.
See what kind of weight James Grattan's throwing here. It's definitely going to be more like a tap weight in terms of where the ice is, and however he's throwing is probably back line or close to it, but it is curling right out of James Grattan's hand.
Yeah, he's going to be all over that center guard there.
That hits a ton of that center guard. So, not quite sure what happened there for James Grattan, but whatever happened, it wasn't what he wanted at all. So, not a great miss there from James Grattan, but discussion now amongst the team about if something maybe was going on with that stone or if it was something the skipper did. So Scott Jones and Jeremy Melez now, maybe a bit of a smile on their face. Just saying, Jason Roach just made an absolute...
Jason Roach just made a bullet over on sheet 2 for 3. Actually, Audishaw was sitting first shot and third shot, and Roach came in with a bullet off the edge and doubled them out to get 3 there. So he goes up 3-0 on Audishaw there at the end of the second.
That's probably the best shot of this draw so far. That I couldn't help but look over and see that come down. So fantastic shot from Jason Roach over there on sheet 2. Terry not very happy about that one, but what can you do? So meanwhile over here, Rob Daly just cleaning the path on our feature sheet here for the skipper.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to go back to that guard and just patch things up.
Yeah, looking just to force Grattan to 1 here, and James Grattan's going to have a tough go of it in his last rock, depending on where this guard is. really easy for these guards to move a ton at the end, but also, that's pretty dangerous for, placement is the most important thing for this stone. So for Scott Jones, Rob Daly's now trying to curl that guard. You don't want it too deep, of course, because it can be dangerous there, because the other team can use it, but it's a decent spot for Scott Jones. So, however, as I mentioned, the danger of where that stone is that it is useful for James Grattan. Because if you look at the angles where that stone that Scott Jones just threw, there is an option for a run back there and get rid of both the blues. Sit 2, maybe 3. Well, 3 if you're yellow. James Grattan electing to play on the other blue stone. Maybe a little easier to use in terms of the angles. But if James Grattan can make this perfectly, he could get 3 out of this. But if he doesn't, he could still get 2, or at least 2, depending on where he hits this. So never wants to hit this on the high side or on the left-hand side of that stone. But you have a lot of wiggle room in terms of hitting it on the nose or just a little inside of the nose. A lot of weight coming here from James Grattan. Nothing coming from the sweepers. Little curl at the end. And just, I mentioned you couldn't hit it high side, and they did. So that may have just been 1 for James Grattan there.
Yeah, 1 yellow there for James to tie things up here at 1 in the second. Over on sheet 1, we got an update. Hanson drew to an open house for 4 points over there. So they're at 4-1 over Kane. We touched on Jason's big shot there for 3. And over on sheet 3, Ed Sear had a chance to draw for 3, but ended up going a bit heavy and picks up 2 there against Como. So they're up 2-1.
So Jamie Brandon just starting with the first rock of this third end, indicating that it was indeed 1 point for Grattan there in the second end. So we're tied at 1-1. Scott Jones accomplishing his goal of trying to force James Grattan to 1 here in that second end, but now his goal will be to score 2 in this third end to try and put a cushion between him and James Grattan early in this game. But of course, these are 2 great teams, evenly matching each other thus far in this game. It's been a bit of a chess game. So Jamie Brandon makes his center guard. Scott Jones calling to come around, not afraid to play around that center guard, which would tell you that, he's not putting up corners, so he's not going for his 2 that hard. It is the third end, so he may just want to try and go for 2 in the fourth, but coming around the center guard still leaves you with a decent chance for 2 in this third end. So a safe call from Scott Jones, and that is his tendency is to call the conservative option. James Grattan just asking Jamie Brandon to draw down to that blue stone.
It's going to come in nicely here for Jamie. Sit right there on the face. Great shot by Jamie.
Yeah, that's a pretty good freeze there from Jamie Brandon. And Rob Daly's going to come on down to that Yellowstone as well. Whatever you can do, I can do just as well. And we're about to see if that is indeed true. Sweeper's on this out of Rob Daly's hand. Line's pretty good, it's just a question of the weight. Jeremy Miller looking up there to try and see. Now going for curl. It is really trying to finish here in the end. And just stops a little short, so there is some space between the blue and the yellow. But does the trick.
Grattan's going to play this run here, which does present a chance of peeling and having to replace that guard. Or no, sorry, it's their own guard. They can do whatever they like with it. Got my colors mixed up.
It's alright, it's early enough in the morning we can get away with that one. And Andy McCann almost making a really good shot there, but it's a decent outcome. However, leaves Scott Jones. This is a game of inches and just getting on the wrong side of that rock there if you're Andy McCann. So now he has a chance to, Team Jones rather, has a chance to hit and roll underneath cover here in this third end. And Brian King's going to try and do just that. Scott Jones really calling for line here. Brian King makes the roll, just pops out the other side. Almost once again, almost a really good shot from Brian King. Andy McCann's going to be have a little smile on his face for that one. Could have been an uncomfortable moment for James Grattan if those two blues were sitting buried behind that yellow stone, but as I mentioned, Brian King his stone just rolls a little too far. So Andy McCann has a chance to play a hit on these two blues and possibly even roll behind his guard. Just a little more than control weight here. This is really curling. Has to for James Grattan. Paul Dobson will now try to curl that stone a little more. Gets the double. Good shot, Andy McCann. Just what the skipper wanted.
Yeah, great execution there by Andy.
So now Team Jones, just a question of where they want to roll. And Scott Jones indicating to Brian King that he wants to roll to the 12-foot area on the left-hand side of your screen. Pretty good weight here from Brian King, but Jeremy Millet's got to go for line. Scott Jones calling him off. Now calling him on again. Always a good sign. And indeed it is. Brian King just rolls over to the edge of the 12-foot, but still in a decent spot. And now James Grattan's going to play to this stone. So Paul Dobson tasked with hitting this blue stone here in the third end. Gets the jam in the back, and I don't believe that blue rolled into the rings. But still an interesting situation here for Scott Jones. Going to draw around the center guard. Again, is what they're talking about. Is at this point, are you going to try and keep forcing James Grattan to play to you, or are you just going to kind of openly admit that you're just okay with the blank?
Yeah, I think I got a few more rocks before they make that decision. We are only on the first and third rocks, so I think kind of like by the end of the third rocks, beginning of skip stones, you got to make that decision.
And as we mentioned, Scott Jones is usually the one for the conservative option, and quite clearly choosing that one here. And that's almost a fantastic shot from Jeremy Millet if that had stayed in the rings, but it doesn't. Nonetheless, a good peel.
Yeah, I think they're pretty okay with that not staying in the rings. It's nice to get it out from the side, just prevents another thing to freeze to, but.
So Paul Dobson here with his second rock, with his third end. Just going to draw over to the wings here in an effort to make the hit trickier for Jeremy Millet. quite go as far over as Paul Dobson or James Grattan would have liked, but an open hit here for Jeremy Millay.
Yeah, it looks like Jeremy, like as you mentioned, Jeremy's gonna be pretty happy with the blank here in the third. Take hammer into the fourth and try to get his two then.
So you got to be careful on these open hits because these stones will move. Don't want to jam. And they don't. Still pretty close there if you're Scott Jones. Jeremy Millay shaking his head at the ice. Not quite sure if that picked something up on the way down, but
I think they're just having a hard time believing it's going to curl that much under a hit. It does curl quite a bit, so I think they wanted to just flop to the left there in front of their own, make that hit a little harder for James Grattan.
So James Grattan throwing his first rock of this third end. Once again, an open hit. Decent practice here in this section of the sheet. However, this is where James overcurled earlier in the game. Just a little less handle than Team Jones throws there, James Grattan, but still pretty good. And makes the shot just fine. So Scott Jones will come down. Not too much to talk about this time with his mate Jeremy Millay, so just playing the open hit. If you get the flop over, as Brent mentioned, in front of your own blue stone, that's the bonus. As you can see, not too much complication over here on sheet 4. James Grattan already down at this end, full well knowing what he's about to throw. So both teams fully aware of what the likely outcome of this end is going to be, and that's more than likely a blank. Scott Jones rolling to the edge of the rings and maybe just out of the rings. Paul Dobson nearly lost his balance there. Luckily for him, he didn't. So now James Grattan had only two options of what he was going to throw when he came down to this end of the sheet, and maybe a little surprised that he's going to be able to throw the draw here, but such is life. That's what he's going to play after Scott Jones just missed on his shot. So James Grattan's going to try and put this in the trickiest spot he can for Scott Jones. However, once again, these draws coming off of the center line. We mentioned how it's a little dished going into the 4-foot area and towards the center. It doesn't curl as much coming off that center line, and it finished at the end for James Grattan, but it's a little deep, but it's still in a pretty darn good spot. So Scott Jones has to have a bit of a think for a moment here once he gets down to this end as to how he's going to get rid of this yellow stone and blank this end, but more than likely just hitting the pretty much right beside where Jeremy Millay's broom is, really.
Yeah, you gotta squeeze them in between those two blues and roll out. So really, anywhere between like half a rock to a quarter rock is fine.
And with this ice, I would venture a guess that Scott Jones is going to throw a fair bit of weight, and he is. Rob Daly going for line the whole way. And Scott Jones will make the blank here in the third end and carry the hammer over. Jeremy Millay just making sure Paul Dobson was okay, that stone was out of the rings. Of course, you can measure to see if they're in play or not, but Paul Dobson says, nope, carry on.
Yeah, it was easier to double check with the other team than kick the rock. And then have that discussion later.
Yeah, especially in a big game like this. But these are experienced guys, so they're aware of those kinds of things. And we do have a score update for you on sheet 3.
Yeah, Como got one back there in the third to tie the game up with Ed Cedar 2-2. So they're tied there.
We're about to have a score update for you on sheet 2. The indication of Terry Odeshaw slam on his broom, I'd imagine he may have just given up a steal to Roach there in the third end. But
Yeah, he was drawing against 2. So Roach was sitting 1, and on his last one drew to the other side of the house, forcing Aldershot into a draw 4-1. And
oh boy, look over on sheet 1.
oh yeah, so Trevor Hansen has come back and stolen another 4 in N3 to move up 8-1 on Ryan Kane.
That's painful.
And a team might be hitting happy hour a little earlier today.
To say the least. This
Yeah.
is the last draw round robin action.
This
so
is the last draw, and so the faster you're off the ice, the more time you get.
yeah, we don't condone drinking your sorrows away,
No.
but
No, Ryan Kane is at 1-5, and Trevor Hansen is at 2-4. So both teams are out of playoff contention. This is just the final game of the round robin for them. Same goes for the Como Sear game. They are both out of their playoff contention.
yeah, so those games basically for pride and for the Fireball Cup. And for those of you who are aware of that, you're aware of that. I don't think I need to explain that one to anybody else.
It does look like Odeshot got his 1 in end number 3.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what happened over there.
No, he wasn't very happy about it, but I think he did pick up his 1.
And meanwhile, over here, Jamie Rand's not going to be happy on our feature sheet there, trying to get to that blue stone, and pushes instead his yellow center guard over as a corner guard, rolls out, and just rubs that blue stone. That was probably the worst outcome for Jamie Brandon in that shot.
Yeah, not a great shot there, but for Jamie, gives Scott Jones an opportunity to split the house here and get his 2, or try to start getting his 2.
Yeah, and Scott Jones's only thing is that this is pretty well a wide open house right now, so he's going to go for the good old junior strategy of split the rings. Got to be careful you don't leave a cross house double, but we shall see. Rob Daly just trying to split the rings here. This is going to go deep. Rob Daly struggled with his draw weight thus far in this game. But that's a decent outcome. Well, if it stays in, and it does, despite James Grattan's best efforts. Put an asterisk beside best, but nonetheless an effort. And that will stay in to count as a second shot there for Team Jones.
Yeah, so we do have official confirmation. Odeshot did take his 1 over there in end number 3, so it is 3-1 for Jason Roach over Odeshot right now as they begin their 4th end.
So Andy McCann just going for the hit on this blue stone. If you get a roll, that's pretty good. And he just noses that rock, so Scott Jones will be content with that. Just checking, looking back behind him to make sure where he wants to go to avoid leaving a double, or how far he can roll over and not take out his back blue.
Yeah, that is the trouble with that blue being that far back, is it really prevents a roll to the left for Scott Jones on anything near the center line.
Yeah, so you'll see Brian King coming with the inside out here, coming off the center line. However, it does need to curl. I think he threw a little too much weight, but just gets a flop. So that's a pretty good outcome for Brian King and Team Jones. However, these are wide open, so Andy McCann has a pretty easy open hit here to sit as a shot stone. And James Grattan and his team are just going to try and have these hits roll over towards that back blue to try and group those stones, perhaps leaving an easy double later in the end. But you can't do that if your own rock rolls out. But this yellow stone...
looks like it's going to stick around as shot rock over on the edge of the 12 there.
That's a pretty good result there for Andy McCann.
Yeah.
Makes Scott Jones certainly think twice about what he's going to do here, indicating originally he wants to freeze to this yellow stone, but obviously the option to hit, but as we said just a moment ago, you hit that stone, you leave a pretty easy double. But that's what Scott Jones elected to do.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to try to roll probably over to the back of the 8-foot.
Now this is really, really, really moving out of Brian King's hand. And this may jam on the back one if he's not careful. And it doesn't, but he rolls out. And we may be looking at another blank scenario here in this fourth end at this point. Paul Dobson is going to have an open hit on this back blue. Throwing his in-turn, or the clockwise rotation. Both teams perfectly happy to throw just about normal weight here. No messing around. Grattan trying to curl to make sure that stone stays in, and it doesn't. So Scott Jones given an opportunity here to, put this rock in a tricky spot. Perfectly happy to take the blank. However, if you want a chance at two, you hope for the other team to miss their shot. But as we mentioned a few times so far in this game, Scott Jones does choose the conservative option and was almost looking at that corner guard, playing something on that, but Jeremy Millett coming down to talk about it. That may have been Jeremy's idea. Whether you either come around that corner guard, I'm not sure what they were thinking about with that rock, but just discussing placement, I guess, of the stone over here. Jeremy and Scott having a passionate discussion. Perhaps Jeremy is not even sure what Jeremy was trying to recommend there with that corner guard, really, Brent?
Yeah, no, I think the call here is to just draw over to the right-hand side and make it a hard hit for Grattan.
Yeah, that
So
may be,
I don't really know what the debate was about. Was it maybe get rid of the guard and roll over? But I think the call is to draw over to the right-hand side and just put something to jam for Grattan on.
Yeah, I think some of Scott Jones' disbelief with what Jeremy was saying was just, I don't really know if playing anything on that corner guard and trying to roll over is really necessary at all. That doesn't hurt you right now. It actually helps you if you're looking to get two, depending on where you place this as a stone. But Jeremy Millett
looks like he still had hit in his head when he was throwing this rock.
Yeah, he definitely not the best place for that. James Grattan has another open hit for his mate Paul Dobson, just to help them out on the stat sheet.
Yeah, Jeremy really needed to be another foot to the right there and quite a bit lighter.
Maybe not totally committed to the skipper's shot there, but
yeah.
Purely speculation, but who knows. Jamie Brandon's probably going to have to go for curl here again. These rocks have been running straight out here for James Grattan and his team, and they roll out, giving Scott Jones the same situation. So, Jeremy, if you weren't committed to the first one, Scott's going to call the same shot again.
Yeah, really though.
Give you a second chance.
Might as well get on the same page now.
So Jeremy, kicking himself for where he put that last one, is going to have a shot at redemption, and thus far, when that's happened for him, he has gotten his redemption. I'll remember a vital shot there in the first end Jeremy Millett made to change the tide of that end when Scott Jones and his team stole one. But here in a different situation, trying to draw in the top 12, make it a difficult spot to get rid of this blue stone for James Grattan. Of course, it is a wide open house, but nonetheless, you always want to try and make the opposition shot as difficult as possible, make them think. On my team particularly, that's myself and my skip always have that discussion every time we're in a situation like this. It's just about trying to make the other team think longer, In a timed game like this, of course, that results in them eating away at their time a little more, which is always a added bonus if you're the other team. But more so just trying to make them throw a tougher shot in what isn't really a tough situation. And for James Grattan, he's seen tougher situations than this for sure, so an open hit, just helping out the stat sheet as I mentioned before. Still have to make sure you make it right though. James Grattan's stones seem to have been curling a little more than the rest of the team. Has had trouble with those rocks so far today. May end up switching those at some point, but once again, speculation. So gets rid of the back one. However, noses that stone and stays in to make Scott Jones make a play on that stone. So Scott Jones can make a hit and roll here. Not really worried about the blue, almost on the very, very edge of the sheet there. Still have to be careful of it though, because if you over curl too much, you could easily jam on that. Especially when you're looking for the hit and roll. Scott Jones with his first stone of this fourth end. With the hammer, of course, after blanking the third. And as I mentioned, jam's always a possibility, but not even close for that. So fine shot by Scott Jones, just getting the flop inside. But as I mentioned before, this is wide, absolutely wide open, so James Grattan's just going to hit, and I venture a guess there, Brent, that we're probably going to see another blank here in this fourth end.
Yeah, things just never really got set up this end for either team, so not surprising that they've just gotten elected to blank this end.
And we will have some score updates here for you in a moment. All of the games are in the very latter stages of their fourth ends, except for sheet 3, where Como seems to have stolen 2 against Ed Sear to go up 4-2 in that game. They're now in the fifth end. James Grattan just makes the hit and roll to force Scott Jones to play the... he was always going to go for the blank here in this last shot, but just makes it, gives him further to roll. But Scott throwing peel at this isn't really going to be overly worried about that. But as we saw for James Grattan when he missed earlier in the game, this middle is a tricky spot. So Scott Jones is going to be fully aware of that when he's throwing the shot to blank this end. With the out turn. And he'll throw a scud missile at this Yellowstone. Rob Daly always going for line. You're never doing anything else in this shot. A little bit of a squawk there from Jeremy Milley at the end.
Yeah, gonna need to roll quite a bit. And that is gonna stick around, I think.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be one for Scott Jones. Scott Jones in disbelief. But as we said, that middle part of the sheet is tricky, and it does absolutely take off on you. So,
and that's exactly why you put it right in the middle, though. Is that it makes it 6 feet to roll either way. So there's no messing about with it. Oh, yeah. Over on sheet 3, though, they've I believe they've blanked the fifth end and are going right into their sixth. So Como and Sear are wasting no time here, trying to wrap up their final game.
I think they're trying to have some more time there in the afternoon.
Yeah, I think they are too. They're not. I can't blame them really though. Like you know you're out of contention at this point. You do have to play your game, so there's no need for a fifth end break when you know the game plan.
Yeah, just a formality prior to communal drinks after this game. Everyone getting ready to watch. There is a possibility, of course, for a tiebreaker this afternoon, prior to the semifinal this evening. So we're going to keep an eye on that. Once again, the important games in regards to those stipulations our sheet 2 and our feature sheet, sheet 4. Sheet 2 over there, just as a reminder, they're in skipstones in their fourth end between Ottershaw and Roach, both teams that play a bit of a slower game, so they're probably always going to be behind our game over here on sheet 4, but it is 3-1 for Roach currently in that fourth end. Jamie Brandon starting off this this fifth end here for James Grattan, trying the tick shot. James Grattan going to have a bit of a smile on his face after that fourth end. Scott Jones just getting an unfortunate result in that last end to take one. So both teams have forced each other to one, other than Scott Jones getting a steal there in the first end. Rob Daly playing an open hit. Imagine James Grattan's gonna look to blank this end. If you get 2, that's a bonus.
Yeah, it makes sense to blank just fifth end. You want to go into the break with hammer, and you want to be able to come back home in 6 with the hammer and start making those even ends count more.
And Jamie Brandon is gonna play the draw in here. Jamie Brandon making that draw around the guard. Just to make things a little more difficult for Team Jones here. Brian King trying to throw a hit at this Yellowstone. Rob Daly going for line the whole way. And Jeremy Millett just going for curl here at the end. And Team Jones will hit and roll out there, giving Andy McCann a chance to practice his draw weight getting around this guard.
Yeah, both teams are just waiting for the other one to make a mistake at this point. Just play some simple shots. See if someone can, if you can force someone into a tough spot and make them miss something.
Yeah, so Andy McCann seems to be a little heavy, more than a little heavy here on his draw. Once again, I said he was practicing draw weight. He hasn't thrown too many draws here in this game, but just wasn't as heavy as I thought it could be. But it is back 8. So Brian King has a chance to play to that stone, try to come down to it with that out turn, or the counterclockwise rotation. Jeremy Millett indicating this is about top 8 weight in his regard. However, this looks a little lighter than that, and maybe all over that guard. And it is.
Yeah, that was a nice guard weight, but that's good. That's one that he wants back right there.
Yeah, not what Brian King wanted to do there at all for his skipper. Trying to draw back 4 really, and comes up real light, and possibly light and tight. Cardinalson a curling right there.
Yeah, over on sheet 2, Ottershaw has stolen a point in the fourth end to get within 1 of Roach. So it's 3-2 for Roach over there as they play their fifth end with the Roach brothers obviously having hammer now again. So close game over on sheet 2. And it looks like Ryan Kane's given up another 3 over on sheet 1
and
to go down 11-1.
I believe the stipulation there
is 6 ends.
There was the 11-1 after 4, And Ryan Kane had a lengthy discussion. They just finished their fourth end, to be clear.
Yeah.
Had a lengthy discussion with Jean-Yves down there, one of our officials here this weekend, as to how many ends they have to play. Team Kane and Team Hansen perhaps having a longer night last night, and maybe Team Kane had a tougher one, still recovering maybe, who knows. But they know they're out of contention, so Ryan Kane just a little impatient, looking to try and maybe just get this game over with and put it out of sight, just to get off the ice. So
Yeah, they were having a conversation there with our head official, who is a great person. But yeah, you got to play 6 regardless of what the scoreboard says. So it's
to Ryan Kane's dismay,
it's going to be a long 2 end for Ryan Kane over there. But
so basically, long story short, take the score line you see on sheet 1 with a grain of salt. Those boys are not exactly enthused to be on the ice still. But meanwhile, the guys on our feature sheet over here on sheet 4, and especially on sheet 2 as well, are definitely very enthused to be on the ice right now, because this is a very important game in terms of playoff opportunities and standings here going into the playoffs. But they kind of need to get into the playoffs first, which is why it matters so much. Depending on what happens in this draw on sheet 2 or sheet 4, there our tiebreaker stipulations. That tiebreaker would be played at 2 p.m. this afternoon, so we'll make you aware of what's going on with that when we know it. In the meantime, we'll keep you updated on all the scores and results here in this last draw of round-robin play at the Capital Winter Club. Jeremy Millin, he's been sweeping plenty. Got the jacket off. Trying to throw a draw here first, though. Try and freeze to this Yellowstone. Scott Jones yelling his heart out, but the sweepers sweep all the way, and Rock still finishes top 8, so Jeremy Millin not very happy with himself.
Yeah, it's not too bad, though. It's still a rock you can run back. You're still second shot, I believe, over that one in the back of the house.
Take a breath, Jeremy. It's all right.
So you got a lot of options here, and it forces Grattan into a situation where he can't really remove that blue one that easily. So he'll probably just guard and see what happens.
Yeah, perhaps most of the frustration is that the yellow may be sitting 1 and 2. I'm not quite sure from this angle at our end, but that may be where some of that frustration's coming. So as much as James Grattan can't get to that blue stone, well, he'll call a timeout here to discuss just that. Our official over there, Lauren, is right all over this timeout. Jumped off the boards to get ready for to make sure he's watching this timeout. Chris Jeffrey,
making his way down the ice now.
All-star coach, really, as the 5th player in this game. Coming in with some advice. If you are sitting out for one game, you can come out for these timeouts. So he'll do so to chat with the guys and see what they're thinking. This is picturesque, really. This image. All 5 guys standing here, backs to us, looking at the shot. If you're a family member, this is a decent time to take a picture. So if you're listening to us, what the heck are you doing? Take your camera out.
It is key to note that Chris Jeffrey cannot go on the ice, because just because he's an alternate doesn't mean he's allowed on the ice. That's why he is on sheet 5. He's on that extra sheet. He cannot go over on sheet 4 and stand with them, so it's up to them to come to him. He does have 1 foot on. I'm assuming if he gets the other one over, then they'll have a conversation with him about it. But obviously, he is in the coach role right now, so he can't be on the ice with them.
Yeah, so Chris Jeffrey just talking to them about positioning and what they really need to do. This timeout's about to end, so our official, Lauren, who jumped off the boards to get ready for this timeout, is going to usher Chris off the ice. And doesn't need to. Chris fully well aware of when the timeout's ending. Jamie Brannon mouthing directions at our fantastic volunteers. Relax, Jamie. It's okay. You might have lost 2 seconds.
I think maybe the other clock started. So
Yes,
Just
maybe
wanted to.
sportsmanship there.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who
Yeah, I
knows?
think it was. I think the other clock got started just at post timeout, so they.
But the officials here and the volunteers, everyone's volunteering here this weekend, including Brent and I. But a big thank you to everyone who volunteered this weekend and is still volunteering going into Saturday and Sunday. Um, everyone's doing a fantastic job. Everyone's working together real well. So can't ask for much better. And so thank you to everyone who's making this event possible here at the Capital Winter Club. And everyone in terms of management at the Capital Winter Club is very much appreciative of all the work everyone's done here this weekend. And that includes the ice techs. We've had fantastic ice. Chris Tapley and Joe Mason and all of their volunteers and all their crew have done a great job this weekend. There was a little bit of drama last night. There was a fall, and ice techs had to come out and try and fix the ice a little, and they were right there, just as a testament to how on the ball they've been this weekend. So thank you to them as well. And while Jeremy and Scott have another discussion here, just going to thank some more people. Thank yous all around this morning. It's almost like it's Thanksgiving or something. But we're going to thank the NBCA sponsors here. Papa John's, in particular, does a really good job of supporting junior curling, in particular in this province. So thank you very much to them. U21's their big sponsor and big help with that. So thank you to them. Province of New Brunswick, we are in the capital city here, so of course, the province of New Brunswick is always a big help getting these big events into New Brunswick and financially helping some of the clubs here and some of the programs we have for particularly junior curling. So thank you to the province of New Brunswick. And you're watching us on 360 Live here, powered by Bell Alliance. So thank you to Bell and their whole crew. We had some technical issues last night, but they are fantastic getting us going again. And we've had a great crew helping us with the live stream, so thank you to them. They do a really good job between TV1 and 360 Live to make sure that you get to watch some great curling here in New Brunswick, wherever you are, whenever the games are on, so thank you to them.
Yeah, that was a great shot there by Scott Jones just during that. So great run back and he did jam on the back on the final yellow in the back, but cleared out most of the damage that could have been done by James Grattan, and I believe might leave himself line one.
Oh boy. James Grattan here is just figuring out what to do with this blue stone. It isn't a tricky spot. If you tap this the wrong way, of course it goes right back into that yellow stone. So just a discussion with the sweepers about where exactly they want to move this blue rock. My guess is they're trying to just tap it thinner to pop it open so they can do something with it, but we'll see here on James Grattan's first stone of this fifth end. Jamie Brandon on it. Off and on for line. Used the curl here. Paul Dobson trying to go for curl. Be careful because it will take off. Just gets by the guard, just gets by the back one, and gets that blue stone going. And they'll be sitting 1 and 2. That's a pretty darn good shot there from James Grattan.
Yeah, it was a great shot there from James. Just the right ice, the right weight, and a great job sweeping on it from both Jamie Brennan and Andy McCann to get that around the guards and tuck that in.
Yeah, that's a great team shot. Always like to see those. So Scott Jones now facing a dangerous situation. Just going to hit this open yellow. Try and roll under to prevent James Grattan from having an easy deuce in this end. Just trying to cut James to 1 here, Scott Jones. Thus far, the teams have been able to force each other to 1, so I'm going to try and keep doing this if you're Team Jones. Don't want the other team to be the first ones to score 2, so as this might be an easier shot, it's definitely an important one. Throwing the out turn, the inside out. This is just a little straighter, but it does curl at the end. Rob Daly on it the whole way. This is going to be on the nose. Or, well, no, gets a little roll. And just doesn't roll enough. That was curling all the way. It need a hair more ice, but James Grattan here has a fairly easy lightweight hit to try and get there too.
Yeah, James Grattan with a chance to kind of start opening that 2 vault here. So you'll need like a nice weight, nice light weight for the hit, and just push that blue rock into the back 12 or just out of the house. But he will need it all the way out into the 12 in order to count 2 here.
So Jamie Brandon just cleaning the ice a little, trying to make sure nothing happens to the stone. You never want a pick on a shot like this where you could get a big deuce in the terms of what's happened thus far in this game. Nobody's been able to score 2 thus far. So if you can finish off the first half of the game scoring 2, that's a pretty good feeling going into the 5th end break if you're Team Grattan. James is going to throw the intern here, probably with board weight. And I think Jamie Brandon's just said it's closer to hack, but it's pretty good weight for the shot that's called. Jamie Brandon going for curl. On line now. Oh, curl. Off and on, always a good sign and a good shot from James Grattan.
Great shot there for 2. Gives them a 3-2 lead going into this 5th end break, and gives Jones the hammer in 6 after the break.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, for this final draw of round robin action here on our feature sheet Ice 4. As you've watched the first couple of rocks come down, we're just getting ready to provide you with the best entertainment we can, really, between Brent and I. Just surviving this Saturday morning. And it is 3-2 currently for James Grattan over Scott Jones. Grattan playing out of the Gage Golf Curling Club out in Oromocto, and Team Jones from Curl Moncton. Of course, Team Jones is throwing the blue stones, and Team Grattan is throwing the yellow stones. For those of you just tuning in, welcome to our live stream coverage of this last draw round robin action here at the New Brunswick Tankard men's provincial finals. It is, as I mentioned, 3-2 for James Grattan after scoring 2 in that fifth end. The first deuce of this game here.
Yeah, so we'll take you around the rink and then we'll come back to our game. So over on sheet 1, Kane picked up 2 there in the fifth. So it's 11-3 for Trevor Hansen over Ryan Kane there. As they're almost done their sixth, they elected not to have a fifth end break, and we'll just play through and try to get off the ice here. Over on sheet 2, which is our other game that we are keeping an eye on, Roach picked up 2 there in the fifth, so it is 5-2 for Jason Roach over Ottershaw there, as they begin their sixth. And on sheet 3, Sear picked up 1 in the sixth, and then they blanked the seventh, so it is 4-3 for Como over Sear as they begin their eighth end, as they also elected not to have a fifth end break, although they are quite ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, they've had a rather open game, so they're a couple ends ahead, and I think both of them are playing as quickly as they can, fully aware that it doesn't really matter what happens in the game. It's mainly for pride, and neither of them really care about that pride. It's more so who can get off the ice quicker.
Yeah, they've also curled with each other and against each other for numerous years coming up through juniors and in the men's league. So there's kind of a mutual look. Neither of us are making it, so let's get off the ice here in a little bit.
So just a reminder, or if you're just tuning in, just to make sure you know, there are some big implications here in this last round of round robin play. There are 4 teams here who don't really care what's going on, but there are 4 who absolutely do. Team Jones and Team Grattan. If Jones wins this game, they both go to 5-2, and it's going to be putting them in a pretty comfortable position in terms of the playoff picture. But seeding's important in terms of this playoff round that's coming up after this. However, if Jones loses, Jones would play the loser of Roach and Ottershaw in a tiebreaker at 2 p.m. So that is the stipulation. So both teams over on sheet 2 hoping for Jones to lose to have better chances in the playoffs. And James Grattan just looking to win to get top spot secured. They're pretty comfortable in terms of the playoff picture, to say the least. But Ottershaw and Roach over there are in some high-stakes curling, as well as Team Jones here has the most at stake, really, out of the 2 teams. But we should have some fantastic curling action here for you this morning.
Yeah, Grattan is locked into the playoffs as their 5-1 record has put them there already. Everyone else below them is sitting at 4-2, so tiebreakers are up for everyone else. There will probably be at least one tiebreaker. I think that's safe to say.
I think so. Yeah.
And the rest of it's dependent on how things shake out here in the rest of the morning.
Yeah, because as we mentioned, the other 4 teams playing on sheets 1 and 3 are definitely out of this already. So the other 4 teams playing, those 4 teams being Roach, Ottershaw, Jones, and Grattan, all jostling for position here to get into first of all, get in the playoffs. Second of all, who's playing in that tiebreaker. We'll let you know what happens there, and keep you updated on the scores on both of these sheets, of course, on our feature sheet. Jones sitting in a pretty decent position to score 2. However, there's only 1 rock in the rings, and they have 1 corner guard. So Grattan's just gonna like to hit this blue stone. There was a couple of yellows in the rings a couple moments ago, but Team Jones has cleared up that house pretty well, and that rock just rolls out of the rings there for Paul Dobson.
And over on sheet 1, that game is over. So they played their mandatory 6, and Hanson has beat Kane, and so they are here to enjoy the rest of the weekend, as neither one is curling in the playoffs.
Yeah, I believe it was a final score of 13-3 for Hanson over Kane. And if anyone at home thinks either of those teams care in the slightest about what the score was going to be in that game, you'd be very wrong. They don't really care about that game. They're just trying to get off to, as Brent said, enjoy the rest of this tournament. However, the opposite side of that coin seems to be what's going on sheet 3. There's a pretty good game between Sear and Como going on. Both teams smiling all the way, having fun, with some good shot making and a tight game over there. I think they're just enjoying this game, enjoying this last game for them of this tournament, and having a little fun while they're at it. So
yeah, it's a little easier to care when the score is 4-3 instead of 8-1. But over on our sheet, we're down to Mates Rocks already, and it's pretty empty house there for both teams.
Yeah, so Paul Dobson just trying to put a little bit of pressure on Team Jones, who are looking to try and get 2 in this 6th end. And it's looking more and more likely that they're either going to be forced to 1, which they really don't want, although keeping the hammer in the even end is okay for them, but they may be forced to blank this depending on what happens. But of course, we're in our last mate rock here from mate Jeremy Millett for Scott Jones, just trying to move this yellow stone. Got to be careful if you're Team Jones, because that yellow could go straight into the blue and stay in the rings at the back of the very, very back of the house there. Not sure Scott Jones is overly worried about that, however. Brian King going for curl here now. Really has to curl. Never want to jam. And what did I say, folks? That's exactly what I warned of. However, I think the blue is still shot. It might be close, but yeah, James Grattan not electing to risk anything at all here in this 6th end. It's probably a wise decision. Just going to hit the blue. Fair enough. So James Grattan's going to get ready to throw his first rock of this 6th end. With the out turn, or the counterclockwise rotation. Jamie Brandon going for line here. Just want to nose the stone. Now it needs a curl. Andy Buchanan sweeping to try and curl that stone. Just gets a flop, but stays in. And I mentioned there's a chance of Jones being forced to 1, so now he's in a position where he's got to make this first draw here pretty well in order to give him a chance of getting 2, because if you're Scott Jones, you really just don't want to get forced 1 in this 6th end. It's not an awful outcome if they do. It'll be tied 3-3, and they'll have hammer in the even ends, but you'd obviously prefer to score your deuce with hammer.
Yeah, it never really is the end of the world getting forced to 1 when it's this close of a game. It's also been proven that Scott Jones plays pretty well without the hammer, so I'm not too worried if I'm Scott Jones. It's just it's a matter, you like your 2, so you try to get your 2, but nothing to deter you from taking a little risk here and maybe ending up with only 1.
So Scott Jones, this stone really needs to curl, but it can't be too deep. So that's why there's hesitation here from the sweepers and the mate, but they really need to curl here now. Rock slowing down. And it tries, but I believe that's probably a third or a little more open, sticking out from behind that guard for James Grattan to hit that stone. Didn't curl as much as Scott Jones would have hoped. So James Grattan just discussing what weight he's going to throw at this stone. Just chatting with his sweepers to make sure everyone's on board and everyone's aware of A, the risk, and B, what needs to be done here to make this shot. James Grattan once again throwing the outturn, coming off of the center line. This path has been fairly straight. Scott Jones just learned that the hard way. James Grattan throwing down this path. I'm pretty sure this is the first time James has thrown down this path. Himself, at least. And that rock is staying really straight, but it is trying to curl here in the end. Getting a piece of that blue, at least. And that's enough to get rid of the stone, and James Grattan will roll out. Or, yep, roll out of the rings, and Scott Jones forced to draw for one here in the sixth end. Has to make it, of course, but their team will have faith in Scott to draw into the full 12-foot at least. Meanwhile, we have a measurement on sheet 3 to determine who's going to score.
This is first 2 points for yellow. Como had the hammer and was trying to come in and tap and sit, and they rolled a little far. So this, so Sierra already has 1 point, and this is for 2 here for them. But Scott Jones here just with an open draw. Got to get full 12 to get his point.
Good practice.
And get to a 3-3 tie.
Yeah, good practice draw here, but still an important one nonetheless. Sweeper's completely off of it. Hoping something happens to it. This cannot go through the rings. And oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear.
And that's going to be a steal of 2 there for James Grattan to move him to up 5-3 or 5-2. Sorry,
yeah, and that was an important moment right there. Scott Jones with a wide open draw, basically to the rings, facing 2, and Scott will not be happy with himself there, full well knowing that that makes his chances of winning much more difficult, makes his chances of playing at 2 p.m. much higher in what would be a tiebreaker against the loser of Roach and Ottershaw, which they're still in their 6th end. As we mentioned before, both of those teams play a slower pace than these two, so that game's always going to be a little behind ours. And meanwhile, there's a bit of a gathering on sheet 3 with the official and all the players from teams Como and Sierra as to what's going to happen next. Not sure if they want to just end early or if they're...
Yeah, I'm not sure. This stemmed from the measurement over that was for 2 points for Ed Sear. I'm not entirely sure how that ended up for who ended up as a second shot rock there. But quite a discussion coming from it. Everyone's still standing around figuring out what's going on next.
Yeah, and as we said, both of those teams are out of contention, so they're just having fun down there, but Alex Kyle is electing to throw the stone through, so who knows what they're doing over there on sheet 3. Yep. I think they're all just trying to throw these rocks as quickly as humanly possible on sheet 3. So that's always fun. Ed Sear, apparently the voice of reason, telling the guys to at least slow down, not to hurt themselves. But on sheet 4, where things do matter, and this game is, you really need a score of 2, maybe 3 in this 7th end if you're Scott Jones. But of course, these are 2 really good teams, and Scott just letting his team down there in the last end. It's an open draw, went right on through. It's going to be kicking himself for that. And nonetheless, though, you got to put it behind you and try and go forward. He's going to put up a double corner guard, definitely going really, really aggressively for the deuce. And I think you kind of have to, don't you, Brent?
Yeah, you're down by 3. You're in the 7th, and you've made a couple mistakes so far. So aggressive is the way to go. 7th end, you really got to get your 2 here. If you don't, then it's a whole lot harder to come back down 4 or 5 should they give up a steal here.
Now, they didn't update the score on sheet 3 for that 8th end, but just to let you know what's going on, literally everyone is throwing these rocks through. Don't see that too often, but once again, neither of those teams really care what's going to happen. So
yeah, something tells me they've come to an agreement on what's going to happen here, and so they've elected to throw them all through here for the 9th end.
Who knows?
By the looks of it.
It might have been an agreement for who wanted to buy who drinks, or we really don't know here now.
Yeah.
But on sheet 4, what we do know is that that's a lot of yellow in the middle.
Yeah.
And that definitely makes Scott Jones' chances of getting a few points out of this end a lot more difficult. But where those yellows are gives an opportunity for Brian King to hit and roll behind the 2 corner guards that Rob Daly had kindly placed for Team Jones. Rob Daly doing his part to try and get his team back in this game. Really important now for the lead to set up this end well, especially when you're trying to get back into a game and score multiple points. Brian King indicated to be a little heavy, but these rocks will take off in the middle, and it does.
Yeah, over on our sheet 3 there, it was 1 for Ed Sears' team, so it is a tie game at 4. So something tells me they might just be coming down to a draw to the button for in the 10th end just to decide.
Oh, you can't help but laugh at that. That's hilarious. That's nothing but fun here in the last game around robin play here. In the last game for both of these teams.
Yes, quite a contrast from the other games we have on the ice here.
And I believe Terry Ottershaw on sheet 2.
He's still got one more rock to come down there.
Yeah, he's about to have a draw, possibly for 3.
Yeah.
Over on sheet 2, which would definitely change the tide of that game and would bring them to 5-5. But Terry Ottershaw, of course, has to throw that rock and try and make that draw, but we'll let you know what happens. Meanwhile, over here, there is a blue in the rings. However, one of those corner guards has been removed. Brian King is being asked to... Is he being asked to replace this stone here, Brent, or...?
I have no idea.
Well, we're about to find out. We are the commentary experts here at Capital Winter Club, no doubt about that, but can't expect the world from us, really. So bear with us as we try and finish out this game. And that's going to be tapping that blue stone for sure. Not quite what was in mind for Brian King there, but that's the result. Jeremy Millett throwing his gripper so far and hits the scoreboard, so that tells you how they feel. But meanwhile, on sheet 3, the first stone has been thrown that isn't going through the rings. And that's Ed Sears' first rock. They may just be throwing skip stones. Who knows what the agreement is?
No, that is Ed Sears' last rock. So I believe they're just doing a draw to the button to figure out who is going to win this game,
or even who just gets the point. It's only the 9th end, but who knows what the stipulation is. But on sheet 2, not sure what Terry Ottershaw did on his last stone there, but we're about to find out. One of our officials is about to place a score on the board. We believe it's 2 for Ottershaw, so he would have just missed his draw there at the end. Jeremy Millett trying to freeze down to these yellows in an effort to score 2 in this end.
Yeah, over on our sheet, Scott's team's making some shots, but James Grattan is coming up behind and and being able to clean everything up quite nicely. So it is putting Scott Jones' team here in a little bit of a predicament.
Yeah, and we have handshakes over on sheet 3. That'll be a win, I believe, for Team Como over Team Sear in a draw to the button contest in the 9th end. Everyone throwing the rocks through until the skipper's last stones. Ed Sears was almost in the forefoot, but Rene Como's stone was closer. So thus it's a 5-4 win for Rene Como over Team Sear in the last game of round robin play, and what was only a fun game to begin with, and they certainly enjoyed that. Always love to see that in this tournament.
It was 2 for Oddshaw in that 6th end, so it is 5-4 for Roach over Oddshaw.
So as you would expect, the only games on the ice right now in this last draw of round robin play here at the Capital Winter Club are the 2 games that really, if we're being honest, are the only ones that matter, especially in terms of playoffs. All of these teams definitely concerned with how they're going to go into this playoff round that starts this evening with the semifinal. Seeding's important, and James Grattan's team concerned with that. And Alshon Roach, however, loser of that game, would play Scott Jones if Scott Jones loses this game in a tiebreaker, I believe, this afternoon. So, of course, we're going to keep you updated, but Scott Jones facing a really, really tough situation in this end, trying to get set up for a couple, but Jeremy Millet really not doing his team any favors and rolling wide open.
Yeah, they started the game off well. Both teams started off pretty well, but James Grattan has been able to, and his team has been able to keep up and make the shots and miss the right way. And Scott Jones' team, just when they miss, they've been missing the wrong way, and that's really been the difference here, is just missing the wrong way by whether it's a couple inches, a couple feet heavy. It's just coming back to bite them a little bit.
Yeah, and that steal of 2 was definitely the game changer. So giving Team Grattan that element of comfort and a bit of a cushion, and these two teams are really good, really experienced. So that cushion is really important at this level, and James Grattan just hitting this open blue stone, courtesy of Jeremy Millet. And 4 yellows in the rings. Scott Jones's best hope is a skipper's deuce, but how you do, that's the question. And Jeremy and Scott are discussing the hit and roll underneath the guard in an effort to sit either shot or second shot to leave a decent option for skipper's deuce, but still a really difficult situation if you're Team Jones.
Yeah, I really don't see a way that Scott gets his 2 here. It's going to require a big miss from James, which we just haven't seen here in a while. So it's gonna take some work for Scott Jones' team to climb back in this one and get a W here.
Scott Jones, in an effort to hit and roll behind the guard, he's going to be throwing the out turn, counterclockwise rotation. Probably what would be control or board weight, just to try and flop underneath these 2 corner guards. However, this really he's going for line now, so I'm not sure what the idea is. Maybe just to get the rub and roll over. That works. And maybe a bit of a plan B. Scott Jones not happy. He knows that the cushion he's facing that he has to claw back from is, well, if we're being honest, his fault quite really in that last end. So he's not going to be happy with himself. So James Grattan and Paul Dobson just discussing what to do here to try and prevent the deuce, which Scott Jones's team desperately needs, so James fully aware of the need to protect against that.
Yeah, I think the call here is a guard just out front. They were looking more at what's possible for Scott, but I think the guard is going to be the call here. Just center line. You can almost get halfway across the center line with that, and it's still in great position.
Yeah, because if you guard, what shot does Scott Jones have for two? There really isn't one with where the other yellow guard is placed. It gets rid of the chance for the blue run back for two. They're simply not there. So, what shot Scott would have if you make this guard perfectly? I believe James Grattan has just called his second time out of this game. So alternate Chris Jeffrey will come out.
I think there seems to be a lot of overthinking on this shot.
Really? Yeah.
They looked at the run from that yellow into the red into the blue in the back there. They're looking at like in-offs, and I think it's just
Yeah.
they just got to keep it simple. Simple so far has worked for them. I don't know why they're trying to get away from it now. I think you just got to draw. You just got to make that guard good, and give Scott that draw to the button for one.
Yeah, because I think these guys are just getting ahead of themselves. Because these boys are thinking about, freeze and hits and what's there. They're trying to end this game. Really, is what they're thinking.
Yeah, they're trying to end the game a little early, and by doing that, they might actually just open the door more for Scott.
Yeah, because if you try to throw the freeze and you mess it up, if you're James Grattan, that's no good at all. You let Scott Jones back into the game, and you look pretty silly. But of course, James Grattan knows what he's doing. But nonetheless, Brent and I rightly questioning the idea here. If you're James Grattan, you steal one, you're just as much having that effect that you're looking for and discussing now. Because this ultimately, wherever he places this stone, if it's in the rings, all you're trying to do is ensure a steal of one. And that's the same thing that can happen if you put up a guard. The guard just is the safer option. I mean, there's not a lot of pain you can do, but to yourself at least if you're Team Grattan, but you could easily. This is the danger. Is if you try and play this, as Brent points out, and I point out as well, you miss this the wrong way, and you simply give Scott Jones his opportunity to get in this game. So
I think he's electing to corner freeze on that blue one. I think that's what's happening.
if you make it perfect,
you know what? I'm really confused now.
Yeah, if you make this perfectly, I think the idea is corner freeze on the left side of that yellow stone, and no matter what Scott Jones does in terms of a hit, goes straight into his blue, and he might give up one or two or more, is the idea. But if James Grattan is ever on the right side of that yellow stone, or is ever heavy, he gives Scott Jones an incredibly easy shot, an easy double, the easiest double he could ask for, to hit that yellow stone. So James Grattan really has to be careful here. I'm not sure why these sweepers are ever going for line in their life, because you can over curl and not be a problem here. And of course now they're going for curl. They may have heard me. And as we mentioned, James Grattan with that experience just makes that shot. But now the question is, he tapped that stone back. So Jeremy and Scott just asking if there is a chance at all for them to score two, what that chance is. Brent and I highly critical of this call from James Grattan.
I think his saving grace might be that he only tapped that yellow about a foot.
Yeah, that's definitely, he's half made his shot he called.
Because I think if you run this, it might jam into the blue.
So he's doing all right in terms of and how he made the shot, but Scott Jones here now has to make his, and it might only be for one in the end, and it might only be for steal, one for Grattan, depending on where he hits this rock. This is a really tough position for Scott Jones. Despite all the conversation about whether or not Grattan should have played that shot, nonetheless, he made it as well as he probably could have. Scott Jones has to make a beauty of a shot here.
And that rock is curling.
That's all over the guard.
He gets by the guard, but it is going to jam on that back blue. And
that's 1 point. Who it's for is the question. Yeah. This game's changed on a dime here on us, so we'll see who scored. I believe it was 1 blue. So I believe it was 1 point for Scott Jones to make the score 5-3. All kinds of questions about those last few shots. You watching at home or wherever you are, you can make your own decision about how you feel about what we've just seen. Of course, we appreciate the involvement. Brent and I may be wrong, may be right. Who knows? Only time will tell. But it didn't really matter too much for James Grattan. Forces Scott Jones to 1, which is a perfectly fine outcome if you're him. And James Grattan maintaining the hammer now in the 8th end, in the even ends. So Scott Jones is going to go real hard for the steal. And once again, these teams have been really, really helping out the Canada Cup here. Scott Jones and James Grattan have been tapping all over the Canada Cup logo in terms of when they've been placing center guards in that lovely 3 zone. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, the Canada Cup is coming to Fredericton in November of 2020. So, as I've mentioned a few times now, be sure to check out the Capital Winter Club's social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And make sure you like or follow all of our social media so that you can see first and hear it first when the tickets go on sale for that. Probably one of the biggest events in curling all year long, and it's coming to Fredericton here in the fall. So if you're in the area, or no matter where you're coming from, please make sure to like our social media at the Capital Winter Club, so you can see the updates for the tickets when they go on sale first. That Canada Cup being hosted at the Aitken Centre at the University of New Brunswick, who is a very good partner of the Capital Winter Club here, so it'll be great to host that event there this fall. In the meantime, that is, if you draw up a tick shot, that's how you want it to end right there. And Jamie Brandon making that tick shot perfectly for his team.
Yeah, he's made a lot of great ticks this weekend. We've seen a couple in their first game on this sheet back on Thursday night, and that's another great one from him there.
So Scott Jones, mildly annoyed by how that tick shot ended up. Anyone would be if you're a skip and you're in the deficit that Scott Jones is currently in this game. 2 points behind, doesn't have the hammer. You're in the 8th end. You know, really in a tough spot. James Grattan going to call the tick again, I believe, for Jamie Brandon. Make it once, why not make it twice? Really just need to score if you're James Grattan in this end.
Yeah, any amount of points will do. You're happy with 1, you're happy with 2. You're really just happy getting on the board and extending that lead.
Andy McCann sweeping for curl. Normally on a tick shot, in terms of the weight you throw, that should stay in the house, but it doesn't. Every team selects their weight for that tick shot and what they like best, but Jamie Brandon, just a little wide, maybe a little heavy. Goes right on by. That's exactly what Scott Jones could hope for. Need to hope for a few misses if you're Team Jones here now. Brian King asked to throw another center guard. This rock is going to be a little heavy in terms of the guard, so just trying to freeze to this stone here now best they can. He taps it, and that's not great from Brian King for Team Jones. Leaves a pretty decent chance of a double peel. And if you don't get the double peel, if you're Andy McCann, if you don't make the double peel, it ends up going to get rid of the back one. Meanwhile, over on sheet 2, pretty important stuff going on over there between Roach and Ottershaw. Meanwhile, Andy McCann makes a pistol over here on sheet 4, doing exactly what we warned you of. But on sheet 2,
we're down to last rock here for the Roach brothers, and they're facing 2 blues in the house, who I believe are out counting their one in the back of the 4-foot.
Grant Ottershaw sitting helplessly at the very edge of sheet 1, watching on as Jason Roach throws his last stone.
Yeah, this is going to be run back here for to try to get 2 out of it here.
Jason Roach throwing a bullet.
And they're going for...
They're off and on.
They're off and on, but needs to curl up just a touch more.
Run double.
And that is going to be a great shot for 3 for the Roach brothers there.
That is... that can't be described any other way than clutch from Jason Roach.
That is a great shot to move up 8-4 as they enter their 8th end of play there now.
That is a game-winning shot. Can't get much better than that if you're Jason Roach. So we'll keep you updated on the scores over there. Game's not over yet. Of course, the 9th and 10th end still to... Well, actually, the 8th, 9th, and 10th end still to come over on sheet 2. Once again, not quite up to speed to our game over here, but we'll make sure you know if the score changes over there. It's been a back-and-forth game. But that's Roach's second three-point score of the game over there. Maybe an indication of how that game's gone. But meanwhile, on our feature sheet here, Jones just trying to keep these guards up. Jeremy Millett will be asked to throw another guard. James Grattan once again, remember, perfectly content to get his 1 in this end. Keep the hammer in the even ends. Extend the cushion he has over Team Jones. Sweeper's just trying to bring this guard in a little deeper. James Grattan, of course, is going to come out and peel it. Asking mate Paul Dobson to do so. Outturn peel from Paul Dobson. And easy as you like. There you go. Just what the skipper asked for. Once again, helps out on the stat sheet as well. Scott Jones. Ask Jeremy Millett to throw the guard again. Not going to be much entertainment value on the end of this this 8th end here, folks, just because the strategy is fairly set in stone. Scott will keep throwing these center guards until he can't anymore. And then we'll try and make James Grattan's shot as difficult as he can to force James to 1. But he's really just trying for the steal in this because he knows that if James Grattan gets 1 point, the game's starting to get out of reach for his team, unless they can get a big end in the 9th end, which is, of course, always possible. 2 great teams on the ice here now, both very capable of scoring big ends.
Yeah, that guard just overcurled there, though, right at the end. So Grattan's going to leave that guard and just come in the house and go after that blue one now, which opens up the house more for him and eliminates any problems.
Yeah, and Paul Dobson here has had a really good game, so not expecting any kind of a miss from him. In this 8th end, he's been steady as you like. So he's had a really good game, and he's going to continue that here, making a hit to really hurt Scott Jones's chances of getting a steal in this 8th end. And remember, folks, it's only a difference of 2 points in this game right now, so any kind of steal for Scott Jones would be game-changing and would definitely change the way James Grattan's going to look at this game.
And Scott Jones just called a timeout here to take a little more time and figure out what's going on here and in their 8th end.
Yeah. So, if you're Scott Jones and his squad, do you hit and try and say, all right, well, chances of stealing aren't great, so we'll give James his 1 and try and get a couple points in the 9th. That's one option. And A lot of people at home probably groaning at me mentioning it because it's not the best option, for sure, but it is there, of course. Discussing the hit and roll. Hit and roll doesn't really help you a lot. But the question is here for Team Jones, do you try and set yourself up so that you have a freeze to that yellow stone in the forefoot for your last shot and just play a guard? Give yourself a chance for a steal and try and set that up, because the question here is, you have one long guard. That's helpful, but you can still easily get around that. So if you're being pragmatic about this, which of course Scott Jones is, we've talked about his strategy being conservative and realistic here. But what's the best chance? Scott Jones's timeout has run out, so they are ticking away at their time clock now. But a long discussion, and rightly so, I would say, for this game. Big implications, of course, in this end. If depending on what happens, Scott Jones is going to try and come down to that Canada Cup logo.
Yeah, with the guard, he's elected to just go for one, or go for a steal of one this end, which is an interesting choice here. Obviously, he would like to steal, but I don't know if this is the way to do it, but we'll see.
And if you're Scott Jones, we can only hope he proves us wrong, but make this game interesting, but we shall see. Brian King just cleaning this stone. It is the later end, so it is easily possible to get a pick. And of course, Scott Jones doesn't want anything to do with a pick right now. Brian King just sweeping to make this positioning perfect, so that's what they called. That's what the skipper made. Good shot from Scott Jones for what he called. Now the question for James Grattan is, what do I do to make their efforts to steal either really hard or downright impossible? So he has all the chance in the world to take this end away from any possibility of Scott Jones stealing. So I believe, Brent, the call is to just draw into the top 8.
Yeah, I like that top 8, top 4 call. It cuts down that scoring area a lot. It prevents them from coming left to right with the easy hit. And in the end, it's just going to leave a draw from the right to the left into the forefoot or the button area for Scott Jones. And I think James Grattan's quite happy to let him figure out his draw weight here.
Yeah, as we mentioned, that was the changing point of the game, was Scott Jones struggling with his draw weight. Struggled early on in the game with his draw weight, but particularly, got away with that. But in the 6th end there, absolutely didn't. Gave up 2, going right on through the rings. And that's been what's changed this game so far and given Grattan a 2-point cushion that Grattan's very thankful for. But Scott Jones definitely is not. Here, James Grattan has a chance to really put the squeeze on Jones here in the later ends of this game.
And this is going to be heavy, which might help Scott a little bit if it seems to want to glide a little bit. But that might give Scott an opportunity for a double there.
Yeah, it might give him a double to sit behind the guard, as Brent mentioned. So that's not great from James Grattan. You don't want to do that when you know the other team's trying to steal. Can't be heavy on those. It's just a foot heavy. This game is a game of inches. And the question now, where exactly do you want to hit this yellow stone on the left-hand side to roll? Because depending on where you hit the stone will affect where your blue stone rolls up. And you don't want to hit it. You don't want to throw a missile at it because you'll roll wide open. So that's another question.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of thought that's gonna have to go into for this just for Scott, and in the end, I think he's gonna want his one here. So there is part of the plan that does just say hit and flop over on top, and say, do you know what, James, take your one. We'll go down 3 with hammer, and we'll come back. I think that might be what he's elected to do here with just that board weight.
Yeah, and still discussion even as Scott Jones goes down to the other end between him and Jeremy Millett. They always maybe too thoroughly talk through every shot they play, but to each their own. And Scott Jones, I think he's just going to call an audible from the hack here, really. Jeremy doesn't even have his broom anywhere, so I think the call out, if I heard Jones correctly, was a hack weight shot. But we'll see here, folks, what he's going to do. Jeremy just looking at the clock to indicate, all right, skipper, choose what the heck you're going to do. Oh, my. That's not going to make Jeremy happy in terms of time because Scott's coming right on back down.
Yeah, they didn't really seem to be on the same page when they left the house, when Scott left the house, and at that point, Scott should have came back and had a bit more of a discussion. But this is.
Yeah, both players frustrated, of course, that this isn't how they wanted this game to go, but you kind of got to leave that aside if you want a chance, boys. You're on the same team, so buckle down and get over whatever it is you're questioning, and have faith in the skipper, whatever the call is, and they're going to throw about back 8, I believe now is the idea. Just tap that Yellowstone James Grattan had just thrown back, and I think that's actually a pretty good call if you're Team Jones, just because you're going to be moving that Yellowstone to the right, and for James Grattan, who has to get rid of it, there's a pretty good chance of a jam. Depending how far you move that Yellowstone, that could make a big difference. But of course, Scott Jones has to make that shot. Here's his last rock of this 8th end. Throwing the out turn. Back house weight. Rob Daly and Brian King both going hard line right now. Room now. A call from Jeremy Millett. Now has to really curl. And we'll just get...
They have to keep their weight up, and it's not going to be enough. And so James Grattan with a chance here to draw for 2. He needs a piece of the white button for 2 here.
And arguably a draw for 2 here for James Grattan would put this game to bed. But can't jump to too many conclusions here. If James is heavy, very good chance of possibly giving Jones 1. But if James is light, an easy chance of giving just taking his 1, which he'll be equally as content with. So not much risk, but there is a chance of disaster for James Grattan in this end. And even, I say disaster, but he'd still have hammer in the 9th end, up 1.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way that he gives up a point here. Just with if he is that heavyweight, then he'll go by everything.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty safe. This is just a draw for 1 or draw for another 1, and see if he can't get 2 here.
Yeah. So the sweepers, with all of that in mind, are just going to try and get this to the pin as close as they can to it. Just need a chunk of the button to get your 2. Skipper practices this all year long. Everyone should.
And that's going to come down quite nicely and sit right there for 2
for
James Grattan.
That is a clutch shot from the skipper there in the 8th end.
Yeah, 7-3 for James Grattan as they enter the 9th.
Discussion now as to, do we shake?
How do we play this?
Yeah, it's a tough discussion if you're Scott Jones, but the reality is, do you just shake, keep your energy and play the tiebreaker? Or, I guess they've elected to keep playing, try and get 3. That's really the only chance they have in this game is getting a 3-ender and making the score 7-6 and try and steal in the 10th, really. Odds aren't great and greatly in their favor in that endeavor, but they will persevere. And on sheet 2, between Oshaw and Roach, we haven't mentioned them in a while. This end has dragged on and on and on in this 8th end, but they're on skip stones. And I believe Jason Roach is throwing his first of skip stones.
Yeah, he's facing one blue on the button and another one just top 4. but he does have a yellow in the back of the forefoot, so it looks like they're going to try to move some blues around. But still a couple rocks left in that end to sort all the damage out there.
Yeah, I think he's trying to, if we just move over to sheet 2 for a moment, try and give you a picture of what we're looking at. Jason Roach is trying to run this, get a run double. There is a pocket for the blue on the button to move. Jason Roach has made a couple of clutch shots. Almost gets one of the blues going. That was the most important thing. However, he does sit right in front of that blue stone on sheet 2, so we'll let you know how that goes. Yeah, we'll stay there for a moment on sheet 2. Everyone who knows curling knows what's going on in front of us on sheet 4. Strategy is fairly textbook. So, and for those of you who don't know that strategy as well, corner guards for Jones until the day he dies, and just trying to draw in right now if you're James Grattan. So, sheet 2 is far over from our feature sheet here, so we can only give you the view of the rings, but it's at the home end, so it's a pretty good view. So,
yeah, there's just one guard on that Canada Cup logo that would be in the same position as it is on our sheet, and there's one just left of the house. So the one left of the house isn't going to cause any problems for either team, but it's that one on center that's going to cause Jason some problems here in a moment after this rock comes in.
Yeah, Terry Ottershaw just going to end up tapping. I think he's sitting 2 now.
I think he is too, but he does give Jason the opportunity to come down and move some rocks and maybe sit shot here for after his final one.
Jason Roach and Spencer Merwini just talking about what they're going to do. Do they freeze? Do they try and play a run back? That's the discussion going on. Jason Roach has had a pretty good go of it in terms of making those runs so far in this game. But, of course, the blue on the left would more than likely jam. Almost certainly jam. So they could hit and roll underneath. But if Ottershaw gets more than 2, they're in a bit of a tricky spot in that 8th end. But if Ottershaw gets 1 or even 2, it's still a pretty comfortable situation for Jason Roach. Lengthy discussion as to what to do over on that sheet right now. Just to give you a verbal description of what's happening on sheet 4, 2 corner guards as you would expect for Jones. Brian King trying to draw around those, and 2 yellows in the house in the center for James Grattan. So typical textbook strategy for a team really pushing hard for their 3 and a team really trying to defend against it. But playoff implications on both of these sheets, so equally as important to let you know what's going on, to give you a chance to see what's happening here. Jason Roach sweeping for line the whole way, cannot wreck on the guard. Cannot wreck on that guard, and gets by. Just gets rid of the 1 blue, rolls over. Terry Ottershaw has a draw to the button for 2. To make that score 8-6. However, of course, Terry Ottershaw has to make that shot to score his 2.
Yeah, he'll need a piece of the white to get 2 here out of that, and Terry Ottershaw can draw quite well as history has proven. So similar shot to what he had just previously played, maybe a little less weight. So it's up to him to get his 2 and pull within 2 of Team Roach.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what Terry has in store for us. That little bit of a backswing in his delivery, something you don't see as often. But Terry, representative of a certain generation in curling that, of course, has done really well for us. Terry and his team having gone to the Brier last year, of course. And that is really light from Terry.
And it's going to be on the guard. So it will be 1 blue for Team Ottershaw. And it is 8-5 now for Jason Roach and his team as they enter the 9th end there.
With the hammer. So moving back over to sheet 4, Jeremy Millet throwing his first mate's rock here in this ninth end for Team Jones. James Grattan had called a moment ago to try and get rid of the back blue. That his team missed that shot and then got rid of the corner guard. So now Jeremy Millet faced with a situation where he can put another rock behind this corner guard and leave his team with a pretty decent setup, at least for now, for 2 or 3. However, this is a little heavy. Not what Jeremy Millet wanted at all.
No, and for a team that's been struggling with draw weight for most of this game, they have not been able to find it in times that they need to.
And that blue sticks out behind that corner guard. James Grattan can play a hit to it fairly easily. Asking Paul Dobson to throw around board. Just get rid of one of those blues and sit on top of it, and basically squashes any chance of 3 for Scott Jones, which is precisely what he was trying to go for. Jeremy Millet not exactly helping him in that endeavor. Paul Dobson, however, throwing this board weight hit here in the ninth end. His last rock at Mate Stones. However, this is curling. Will get by the guard. Gets rid of one blue, and as both roll, sits in front of the other.
It's a pretty good shot there.
Yeah, that's pretty good from Paul Dobson. And as we mentioned before, he's had a pretty darn good game.
Yeah, there's no ways about that.
So Jeremy Millet with his last stone at this ninth end, trying to help his skipper out, his team out, and trying to get closer to James Grattan for the 10th end. Just trying to freeze to literally any of those yellow stones, honestly. At least whichever one is in the 4-foot. Going for curl here in the end. Oh my. Yeah, Jeremy Millet. That not very good.
No, that's
if I'm putting it mildly.
It's a rough way to potentially end the game here for them.
Yeah, that's quite literally the last thing you could have done on that shot, and he knows it. So I'm not going to rub salt in that wound, but yeah, so now a discussion, pretty comfortable discussion if you're James Grattan, as to where to put this yellow stone. And Jamie Brannon and him yelling back and forth down the ice. Not always the greatest thing to do, but good team discussion. All of these guys very experienced. So James is going to come down and I believe just get rid of this. He's getting rid of either the blue center guard or just hitting the yellow in the rings. We're going to find out here in a second. Throwing the out turn. Yeah, definitely just peeling this blue here. If he can hit it thick, I believe is the call, and try and get the back one while he's at it. That'd be lucky, but just gets the peel.
Yeah, it's going to leave... it's not a bad shot.
No.
The back one's obviously the extra that you might want, but it does leave Scott Jones an opportunity here to draw in and maybe half bury behind those center ones. Make it a little bit harder for James Grattan on his last one to get anything out of there.
Yeah, so Scott Jones on his first skip stone here in the ninth end. Really in a difficult position to try and score multiple points here in this ninth end, and he desperately needs them. Has been going very hard for the 3 points, really, the whole end. And Scott Jones, oh boy, he's struggled with his draw weight, and I'm pretty sure that just picked a second time, actually. It seemed to me that picked about a third of the way down and then picked again just before the hog line. That's incredibly unfortunate for Scott Jones.
Yeah, it's just That is insult to injury right there. Just a shot that really needed to happen in order to make this game close.
Yeah, curling gods apparently not in Scott Jones' favor.
No.
So, seemingly an indication here that Scott Jones' team after this game will just have to, bar anything drastic happening in this game, will just have to regroup, get their heads together, and play hard in that tiebreaker to get into the semifinal tonight. Once again, if Team Jones loses, which seems to be the likelihood, they would play the loser of Ottershaw and Roach in the tiebreaker for that spot in the semifinal tonight. James Grattan, of course, with a win in this game would secure top spot, straight into the final. Just putting a rock top 12, just barely biting top 8 beside this Yellowstone to make pretty much any chance Scott Jones had of scoring impossible. But it comes a little light, that's fine. Still does the trick. Scott Jones really looking at no good options here. Trying to see if there's a port.
Yeah, I don't see a way that Scott manages to get a point out of this end.
I don't think there's an angled run because of where James's rock just went. Yeah. All we can really say is good luck, because I cannot see any sort of good option here for one for Scott Jones. Scott seems to believe that the angle run's the best. Now, the angle run in this case for Scott, he has to hit the left yellow in the 4-foot to try and roll up off of that stone into maybe either the other stone or the button, and that would be for 1 point. So that's kind of a testament to how this second half of this game's gone for Team Jones. So we'll see. This could be a decent boost, especially going into the tiebreaker. Absolutely nothing coming out of Jeremy Millet's mouth. And
It's going to catch a little thin.
Nope.
And that'll be 2, I believe.
Handshakes here.
For Grattan, and that is handshakes, yeah.
So final score here in this ninth end of 9-3 for Team Grattan over Team Jones. Grattan secures the final spot in Sunday's final. And meanwhile, Team Jones will play the loser of Ottershaw and Roach in the tiebreaker this afternoon, with the winner of Ottershaw and Roach going into the semifinal immediately. And right now, it's 8-5 for Roach over Ottershaw, but we're going to switch over there just to give you a view of what's going on sheet 2. Yeah, we only have one camera that we can use, and that's a long view, but nonetheless, we can give you a view on that game. Roach has the hammer in this ninth end and is sitting pretty well. Jason Roach with his first skip stone of this game. Just drawing to the wings to split the rings here in this ninth end. Really, if you're Jason Roach, you just need to score. Put this game out of sight. However, that's a little heavy from Jason.
Will sit second shot, though, which is really all I had to do there. We're going to see Terry's last one here now, and he's going to have to draw to that yellow one on the left-hand side there to freeze to that, and hope to have a chance to score a point here.
Sweeper's not really on this at all. Grant Ottershaw, full well knowing it's the 9th end, so he's just going to clean. Prevent a pick, like we saw for Scott Jones there moments ago. And Terry Ottershaw freezes to that. I don't believe he's shot.
No, I don't believe he is either, which will leave Jason a draw for 2 and most likely put this game away.
So Jason Roach, with his last rock of this 9th end, could very well end this game. Made his draw there a second ago to sit 2. Terry Ottershaw just a little heavy.
And they're not even going to bother.
They're not going to bother. Terry
electing to go for handshakes, and so that is Jason Roach moves to 5-2 as Ottershaw drops to 4-3. We'll play Jones at 4-3 as well.
So Battle of Moncton this afternoon. Tune in at 2 p.m. for that tiebreaker. And until then, have a good afternoon, everyone.